Let me maybe just play you a bit of the track that you get an idea what it sounds like and what elements are actually in the track to make this thing complete. Hey guys, feeling today a lot better. I finally got a normal amount of sleep. That's also the reason why it's already past 10, but still enough time to just make something meaningful and start new tracks today on this Saturday. Because there's really nothing that motivates me more than just being here in the studio and working on new tracks. That's what really is just the best feeling about this job. That you create something and at the end of the day you have something that you have made and other people can listen to. The worst are the jobs where you do work like Sisyphus, the Greek guy that got punished to roll the stone up the hill, and every time he reaches the highest point it rolls back again and he has to do it all over again. These kind of jobs where you don't create something and you don't proceed and get anywhere, these are probably the hardest jobs of all, and there is no way I could ever do something like that. It's way too frustrating. And that's what I appreciate so much about making music. Whenever I want, I can just open up a new Logic project, start making a track that's kind of like trying to roll the stone up the hill. And whenever I'm done with the track and it gets released, it's like throwing it over the cliff into the water. And then it's actually up to you, to the listener, to decide what then happens to the track. But since starting a new track is actually something hard to do, and I myself struggled for a long time how actually to start a track. Should you start with the bass, with the kick, with the melody, with the vocals, with the songwriting? When should you start mixing? And all these kind of things. I wanted to talk about 2 approaches to starting a track from scratch that might help you to organize yourself a bit more and finally get to the goal to finish the track and throw the stone over the cliff. So this first kind of concept is more suited for the EDM kind of music that is played in clubs and on festivals. It relies on a good kick, a good bass, a good mixing, a lot of build-ups, a lot of drops. It's meant to make the people dance and move. It has a nice rhythm and groove to it. It's usually 6, 7, 8 minutes long, has an intro and outro for a DJ to mix in and out of the track. And during my time as a ghost producer, I actually made a lot of these kind of tracks. I have a lot of them on my hard drive. I will probably just try now to find one that never got released, where I actually have the right to show it to you and show you how I've made it, in which order I actually worked on it. So this right here is an older unfinished project. It's more into a tech house, deep progressive kind of direction. But you know what, let me just play it to you. That's easier than trying to explain what it is. It's not my best track, it's an old one that I never finished, but it's a good example for one of these club tracks. The main focus and actually the first thing I start with this kind of music is just selecting a really good kick. It's the foundation of this kind of music, like 80% of the very sub-bass part that really kicks and moves you in the club or on a festival is just the kick. If you select the wrong kick, you're kind of already screwed from the start. It will be really hard for you to get anywhere. Everything else is built up on the kick. So just try to find really nice samples. If you do find good kick samples, you reuse them on your tracks. Don't be one of these persons that always wants to use something new. For the kick, just go for the ones where you know that they work. So the second you have a nice kick, for the more like techno, tech house kind of music, I would do the bass line first, because it's so important that it works good together and is groovy and moving the people. And if you make like big room EDM where the chord progression is almost the main melody, or the main melody is the chord progression, or some tracks just have a main melody kind of chord step kind of thing, then start with that and the kick, and then do the bass, because the bass is usually just a copy of the chords, just in a different rhythm. The second you have the kick, the main melodic elements, the bass, the chord progression, the main melody, and maybe some additional arps or melodies, I would advise you to continue working on the sound design of these kind of elements. This means finding the right synth sounds, starting to process them, adding maybe distortion, delay, reverb, the first EQing, maybe grouping them and putting compression on top. It's not really mixing, because you work on them separately. It's really more the sound design than finding a good balance to the other elements. The sound design is just so important for electronic music. It really relies on it. It's like singing for pop music. That's what gives the track the character. A lot of producers are known for certain synthy type of sounds, and I also know a lot of producers, whenever they have a big hit with a certain type of sound, they just do the next 10 tracks with a very similar sound that kind of is then their signature sound, where people can recognize them. And then actually I would start adding the other drum elements, the clap, the shaker, the hi-hats. You can also, what I sometimes do is when I have the kick, I already add the other drum elements and build a nice drum groove. This also depends on the music. The less melodic it is, the more drum elements you usually have, the more percussions you have in it, just to keep it interesting. So if your melodies are not that interesting and exciting, you have to do other things instead. For example, a lot of techno tracks are not really musical. They just have sometimes 1 or 2 or 3 notes in the entire track, but then they have a lot of sound design in them, a lot of effects in them, a lot of automation, and just other things that make up for the musical stuff that is missing. And then if you have all of these elements together, you should definitely start with the arrangement. I sometimes even start arranging before that, like a step in between before doing the final arrangement, where I just have like A and B parts. For example, I already built a small break part just to see what this could sound like and which elements should go in there. Then I have like the main drop part with all of the drum elements, the bass and the chords and melodies. So just that I can test how it sounds transitioning from the break into the drop. That's like the main big part in electronic dance music. That's what you definitely have to nail. A lot of DJs just skip to this point, listen to it, and then decide if they buy the track and if they play it. So for example, here in this track, the first parts are all of the drums, the bass, then the melodic parts, the effect sounds, and smaller effect sounds that just introduce new parts and create the transitions. For the arrangement, you have here the intro part that slowly builds up. As you can see, more and more drum elements are introduced, a small little break, then the first part where a lot of things are going on, and then it transitions into a main part that fades out again into the first, or actually the main break of the track, that then drops in again into the main part where the people dance, and then you slowly kind of fade out again to the end of the track. And the second all of this is done, you have all of the elements, you have the right sounds, you have the right processing on the sounds, you have done all of the automation, like all of the build-ups, the synthy cutoff opens up, closes again, reverbs in and out. Then you start with the mixing. You really go into your mixer, you check the volumes, you add compression where it's needed, you add reverbs where it's needed, you listen to the parts solo, try to improve them with EQing, then you listen to them in context and you just try to get the best mixing that is possible. And I have to say, for me personally, the sound design is what takes the longest. Making a unique, interesting sound is quite hard, especially for synth sounds. And also the mixing is something where I spend a lot of time getting the balance between all of these factors right. Can take quite a while. That's also the main reason why I try to separate the creative part from the arrangement part and the arrangement part from the mixing part. If you start to mix all of these in between, you get lost in a second. It's so easy. If you start like with the first elements already, the mixing, then every other element you add to it will ruin the mixing again and you have to start all over again. in Logic, for example, if you do the automation and then move around stuff, it will screw up the automation. That's why I always first make the arrangement and then the automation. So that's basically what works for me. I don't know how you are used to work. If you're not really structured, it's probably better to just start doing it in a structured way. This will help you a lot. Also try to focus on the project you're working on, not to work on 10 projects at the same time. Because if you're doing the arrangement on one track and then do 4 or 5 other tracks and get back to it, you kind of forgot where the elements are sitting and behind which element you already did the automation. So it makes more sense to kind of keep working on the track and try to finish it in one go. I know it's not always possible. It also happens to me that I work on 3, 4, 5 tracks at the same time, but I try not to. The second approach is actually an approach that I'm trying to do more often. It's for my kind of music just better. I'm working heavily with vocals. The vocals are not just laying on top of an instrumental. I try really to make songs, and for more the pop kind of music, you do recording sessions where a producer and a singer and songwriter come together. So in the future, and I hope this is happening soon, I will try to get more singer and songwriters directly here with me in the studio when I'm making new song ideas. This way I of course have way more control over the final result. I can just speak to the singer and songwriter and tell them what to do, in which direction I want to go, give them advice, correct them, or maybe just change my idea, my instrumental, and try to support whatever they come up with. When you do first the instrumental and send it out to a singer and songwriter, it's usually either hit or miss. You can either use it directly as it is and it's good and it's fine. It might not be perfect, but usable. But if you get something back that isn't 100% what you want for the track, it's almost impossible to get them to change it over the phone, over email, trying to explain them what you really want. And usually they tested it and did a lot of versions before even sending it to you. And the final thing they send to you is kind of already so stuck in their head that it's hard for them to change it. So it's easier to tell them directly to change it when they're with you in the studio than trying something that is already finished for them to change again. I hope you're kind of getting what I mean. I will now start with new song ideas, but since I don't have a singer and songwriter here with me, I will start with the second most important element in my kind of music, and that is the electronic guitar. It's all fixed, I got new strings, so it's time to use it again. Pretty far with the track. I think I will call it a day for today and just go back home, relax a bit, watch a bit of Netflix and all these kind of things. I hope me explaining how to make a track, how to start with it, and what elements come first and last is helping you. If you have another technique to get to the point where you kind of roll the stone over the edge and finish a track, it's of course totally fine to use that way. It's just important that you get there. Otherwise the stone is just rolling back down the hill right at you and you will start to be a poor Sisyphus.